An old and poor woman was begging for bread on the street because her children had stolen all her money. One day, a luxury car stopped near her. The afternoon New York sun bathed Central Park in golden light, creating elongated shadows that danced across the worn asphalt. Sitting on a weathered wooden bench, Mildred watched the constant stream of people passing by, her tired eyes reflecting a lifetime of experiences, and more recently, pain. At 78, Mildred was a frail figure, but with a dignity that the years had failed to erase. Her hands, marked by decades of hard work, rested gently on a worn bag that contained her few belongings. The gentle wind stirred her gray hair as she took in the sights and sounds of the city that never sleeps. As she watched, Mildred couldn't help but let her mind wander to the past. Images of a life that seemed so far away now flooded her thoughts. Flashback. A younger Mildred, with brown hair and eyes sparkling with determination, was leaning over a sewing machine. The rhythmic hum of the machine filled the small apartment as she worked tirelessly, sewing dresses for a local store. On the floor next to her feet, Caleb, just 5 years old, played with wooden blocks, building towers that soon collapsed. Megan, an 8-month-old baby, slept peacefully in a makeshift crib made from a cardboard box lined with soft blankets. Mildred paused for a moment, looking at her children with a mixture of love and concern. "I'm going to give you a better life," she whispered, more to herself than to the children. "No matter how hard I have to work." End of flashback. Back in the present, Mildred felt a solitary tear run down her wrinkled cheek. She wiped it away quickly, not wanting to attract the attention of passers-by. How had things changed so much? How had those innocent children, for whom she would have given her life, become adults capable of betraying her in such a cruel way? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of laughter. A group of young people walked past her, engrossed in their smartphones, sharing some joke that Mildred couldn't understand. For a moment, she wondered if Caleb and Megan were doing the same at that moment, laughing and enjoying life, forgetting the mother they had abandoned. The weight of loneliness hit her like a wave, almost knocking her off her stool. Mildred closed her eyes, trying to ward off the pain that threatened to consume her. When she opened them again, her gaze fell on an elderly couple walking hand in hand along the path in front of her. The man leaned over to whisper something in the woman's ear, making her laugh softly. Mildred felt a pang of envy and sadness. "Will I ever have the chance to be happy again?" she muttered to herself, her voice almost inaudible over the din of the park. As the day progressed, Mildred remained on her bench, a silent sentinel watching life go by. Families picnicking, joggers going about their daily routines, couples in love lost in their own world. Everyone seemed to have a purpose, a place to go, someone to love. Everyone except her. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Mildred finally stood up. Her muscles protested after hours of inactivity, reminding her of her age and frailty. With slow, careful steps, she began to walk towards the park exit. Passing a garbage can, Mildred noticed a discarded newspaper. The headline caught her eye: "Local millionaire donates fortune to charity." For a moment, she imagined Caleb or Megan doing something like this, using the money they had taken from her to help others. But she quickly pushed that thought away. Reality was very different from her fantasies. On leaving the park, Mildred found herself in the hustle and bustle of the city. The contrast between the relative tranquility of the park and the urban chaos was stark. Cars honked, people shouted into their phones, the subway roared beneath her feet. All this energy and life around him only accentuated his sense of isolation. Walking along the crowded sidewalk, Mildred felt invisible. No one looked at her. No one noticed the pain in her eyes or the defeated curve of her shoulders. It was as if she were a ghost. wandering through a world that had moved on without her. Coming around a corner, Mildred stopped, undecided where to go. Her apartment, the home she had kept for decades, full of memories of a life that no longer existed, now seemed cold and empty. The thought of going back there, of sitting alone in her worn-out armchair, listening to the relentless ticking of the clock, was almost unbearable. It was then that her gaze fell on a bakery across the street. The aroma of fresh bread floated in the air, making her stomach rumble, reminding her that she hadn't eaten for hours. Mildred hesitated, her hand clutching the purse where she kept her last coins. Should she spend what little she had on food, or save it for an emergency? As she pondered, a young woman came out of the bakery, holding a paper bag full of bread and sweets. The smell intensified, and Mildred felt her mouth salivate. The young woman passed her, casting her a curious glance before disappearing into the crowd. At that moment, something inside Mildred broke. The tears she had been holding back all day finally overflowed, running silently down her cheeks. There, in the middle of the busy New York sidewalk, Mildred wept for everything she had lost: her money, her children, her dignity. But amidst the tears, a small flame of determination began to burn in her chest. She may have lost a lot, but she was still alive. She still had one day at a time to live, to breathe, to try. With a deep sigh, Mildred wiped away her tears and straightened her shoulders. Taking one last look at the bakery, she made her decision. Tomorrow would be a new day, and who knows what it might bring. Maybe, just maybe, happiness was still within reach. With this thought, Mildred started walking towards her apartment, her steps a little steadier than before. The future was uncertain, but she would face each day as it came, with the strength and resilience that had sustained her all her life. The afternoon sun was beginning to set over New York, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink that were reflected in the windows of the skyscrapers. Mildred walked slowly along the busy sidewalk, her tired body protesting with every step. The tantalizing smell of fresh bread still lingered in her mind, a cruel reminder of her precarious situation. Suddenly, the roar of a powerful engine cut through the hubbub of the street. A gleaming black SUV came to an abrupt halt beside the sidewalk, its chrome wheels glinting in the light of the setting sun. Mildred cringed instinctively, years of life in the big city teaching her to be wary of vehicles that stop suddenly. The passenger door opened, and a young woman emerged gracefully. She was the embodiment of wealth and privilege. Perfectly groomed hair, designer clothes, a handbag that probably cost more than Mildred had ever earned in a year. But there was something in her eyes, a softness, a curiosity that didn't match her outward appearance. "Hello," said the young woman, her voice surprisingly gentle. "I'm Madison. I noticed you walking and thought maybe I could offer you this." She held out her hand, holding a carefully wrapped sandwich. Mildred looked at the sandwich, then at Madison, distrust evident in her tired eyes. "Why?" she asked, her voice hoarse from so much disuse. Madison hesitated, biting her lower lip. "Honestly, I don't know. I just felt like I should do something. Anything." There was a vulnerability in Madison's voice that took Mildred by surprise. Slowly, almost against her will, Mildred reached out and took the sandwich. "Thank you," she murmured. A smile lit up Madison's face. "There's a bench over there," she said, pointing to a small park across the street. "Would you like to sit with me for a moment?" Mildred hesitated. All her life experience was screaming at her to refuse, to get away from this rich, well-meaning stranger. But there was something in Madison's eyes, a loneliness that echoed her own. "All right," Mildred heard herself say. They crossed the street together, Madison unconsciously slowing down to keep up with Mildred. The small park was an oasis of calm amidst the chaos of the city. Leafy trees filtered the light of the setting sun, creating dancing patterns on the ground. They sat on a worn wooden bench, a stark contrast. Mildred in her worn-out clothes and Madison in her designer suit. For a moment, they sat in silence, watching the people go by. "So," Madison finally spoke, her voice hesitant. "Do you live around here?" Mildred nodded slowly. "For over 50 years, she replied. "I've seen this city change a lot." "It must have been amazing to see all those changes," Madison commented, her eyes shining with genuine interest. Mildred shrugged. "Some changes have been good. Others—" She let the sentence hang in the air, her eyes getting lost in distant memories. Madison watched Mildred's face, noticing the deep lines of worry, the tired eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "You look tired," she said softly. Mildred laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Tired? Yes, I think that's a good word for it." There was a pause, the silence filled by the distant sound of traffic and the rustle of leaves above them. "You know," Madison began, her voice low and confiding, "sometimes I feel tired too. Not physically, but in here." She touched her chest. Mildred looked at her in surprise. "You? But you're so young, so—" "Rich?" Madison added with a sad smile. "Yes, I know. I have everything money can buy. But sometimes it feels like I don't have anything that really matters." The words hung between them, charged with unspoken emotion. Mildred felt a pang of empathy for this young woman, so different from her in so many ways, but so similar in her loneliness. "What do you do?" Mildred asked, genuinely curious. Madison sighed. "Officially, I'm a marketing executive in a large company. In reality, I spend my days in meaningless meetings, pretending to care about things that make no real difference to anyone's life." There was a bitterness in her voice that surprised Mildred. "And that bothers you," she observed. Madison nodded. "A lot. I look around and see so many people struggling, suffering, and here I am, worrying about spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations." Mildred felt a wave of sympathy for Madison. "You want to do more," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Madison whispered, "but I don't know where to start." Mildred looked down at the sandwich in her hands, still untouched. "Well," she said with a small smile, "it looks like you've already started." Madison laughed, a genuine, joyful sound that lit up her face. "I guess so. Although offering a sandwich is hardly going to change the world." "It changed my world today," Mildred said softly. The words hovered between them, loaded with meaning. Madison looked at Mildred, really looked at her for the first time. She saw the dignity in her bearing, the strength hidden behind her physical frailty. "What's your story?" she asked gently. Mildred hesitated. It had been so long since anyone had asked, since anyone had really cared. "It's a long story," she finally said. Madison looked at her expensive wristwatch, then took it off and put it in her handbag. "I have all the time in the world," she said with a smile. And so, as the sun set over New York, two women from completely different worlds began to share their stories. Mildred talked about her years of struggle, about the love she felt for her children, about the betrayal that left her with nothing. Madison listened, her eyes filling with tears as the story unfolded. When Mildred finished, Madison took her hand, a gesture of comfort and connection. "Thank you for sharing this with me," she said, her voice tinged with emotion. Mildred squeezed Madison's hand, feeling a wave of gratitude for this unexpected encounter. "Thank you for listening," she replied. The city lights were beginning to come on around them, artificial stars against the darkened sky. Madison looked at Mildred, an idea beginning to form in her mind. "You know," she said slowly, "I think maybe we can help each other." Mildred tilted her head, curious. What do you mean? Madison smiled, a glint of enthusiasm in her eyes. I have an idea. An idea that could change everything, for both of us. And so, in that small park in the heart of New York, two lonely souls found an unexpected connection. What began as a random act of kindness was about to turn into something much bigger, something that would change their lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. The next morning's sun found Mildred sitting in a modest cafe, her wrinkled hands wrapped around a cup of hot coffee. The comforting aroma filled the air, mingling with the smell of toast and the soft buzz of morning conversations. Across the table, Madison watched Mildred with a mixture of curiosity and compassion. "So," Madison began, her voice soft, "you mentioned yesterday about your children. Can you tell me more about them?" Mildred looked up from her cup, a shadow passing across her face. She took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to dive into long-buried memories. "Caleb and Megan," she said, her children's names coming from her lips like a prayer. "They were my whole world." Flashback. A younger Mildred, with brown hair flecked with gray, ran through the park behind a 10-year-old Caleb, while Megan, aged 5, laughed, sitting on a swing. "Mommy, look how tall I am," cried Megan, her little legs waving in the air. Mildred stopped, panting, but with a beaming smile. "I see, my love. You're flying." Caleb approached, holding a wildflower. "Look what I found, Mom," he said, proudly offering the flower. Mildred knelt down, embracing her two sons. "You are my treasures," she whispered, tears of happiness shining in her eyes. End of flashback. Back in the present, Mildred blinked, wiping away the tears that threatened to fall. Madison reached out, gently covering Mildred's hand. "They seem to have been wonderful children," Madison said softly. Mildred nodded, a sad smile playing on her lips. "They were. I had such high hopes for them, dreams. I wanted them to have all the opportunities I never had." "And what happened?" Madison asked gently. Mildred sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "Life happened, I guess. Caleb was always ambitious, intelligent, determined. He got a scholarship to a prestigious university. I was so proud." Her voice faltered for a moment, and Madison squeezed her hand in silent support. Megan was different, more sensitive, artistic. She struggled to find her way. For a while, I thought I'd lost her to things that no mother wants to see her daughter involved in. Madison nodded, her eyes full of understanding. "It must have been difficult for you." "It was," Mildred agreed. "But they were my children. I loved them unconditionally. I did everything I could to support them, to show them that I would always be there for them." She paused, taking a sip of coffee. When she spoke again, her voice was full of emotion. "When my husband died, he left me a small inheritance. It wasn't much, but it was all we had. I saved that money, saving every penny. It was our safety net, you know, for emergencies, for my children's future." Madison leaned forward, absorbing every word. "Then, a few months ago, Caleb came to me. He said he had an incredible investment opportunity. He promised he'd triple the money in a matter of weeks." Mildred shook her head, the bitterness evident in her voice. I hesitated, but he insisted. He said it was our chance to finally have financial security. "And you trusted him?" Madison concluded softly. Mildred nodded. "How could I not? He was my son, my brilliant boy who always knew what he was doing." She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "A week later, the money was gone. All our savings evaporated. Caleb, he just disappeared. He wouldn't answer my calls. He wouldn't answer my messages." "And Megan?" Madison asked gently. Mildred's eyes filled with tears. "Megan. She took her brother's side. She said I should have been more careful, that it was my fault for being so naive. Her voice shook. Her voice shook. My own daughter. Madison felt her heart squeeze. The pain in Mildred's eyes was palpable, an open wound that seemed to have no cure. I've lost everything, Mildred continued, her voice almost a whisper. My money, my children, my dignity. Sometimes I wonder if I've done something wrong, if I've somehow failed them. Madison shook her head vehemently. No, Mildred, you haven't failed them. You loved your children. You gave your all for them. It was their fault, not yours. Mildred looked at Madison, surprised by the firmness in her voice. You're kind to say that, dear, but sometimes it's hard to believe. Madison leaned forward, her eyes shining with a sudden idea. Mildred, what if we could tell your story? Show the world what an incredible woman you are, everything you've overcome. Mildred blinked, confused. Tell my story? But who would want to hear about an old lady like me? Madison's face lit up with enthusiasm. Lots of people, Mildred. Your story is powerful, inspiring. It's about love, sacrifice, betrayal, and above all, resilience. She picked up her phone, her fingers gliding quickly across the screen. You see, I work in marketing, right? And one of the most powerful things in the digital world today is real stories, genuine human connections. Mildred watched, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension in her eyes. What if we made a series of videos? Madison continued, her voice full of excitement. Short clips of your daily life, your memories, your dreams. We could share them on social media, show the world who Mildred really is. Mildred hesitated, the idea seeming both exciting and frightening. I don't know, Madison. I'm nobody special. Madison took Mildred's hands in hers, her eyes shining with conviction. You are special, Mildred. You're strong, brave, and full of love, even after everything you've been through. Your story can touch hearts, inspire people. It could even reach your children. Hearing this, something changed in Mildred's eyes. A small flame of hope ignited. Do you think so? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Madison nodded emphatically. I'm sure. And even if it doesn't reach them, it could help other people. People who are feeling alone, abandoned. Your strength can give them hope. Mildred was silent for a long moment, considering. Finally, she looked at Madison, a small smile forming on her lips. Well, I guess I have nothing to lose, do I? Madison smiled back, her face lighting up with joy. Nothing to lose and everything to gain. Let's do this together, Mildred. Let's tell your story to the world. And so, in that small cafe, two women from different generations and worlds sealed a pact that would take them on a journey of self-discovery, healing, and perhaps redemption. Mildred's story was about to come to life, touching hearts and changing lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Mildred's small apartment, creating dancing patterns on the worn floor. Madison, with her compact but professional filming equipment, adjusted the camera while Mildred, sitting in her favorite armchair, nervously smoothed out the wrinkles in her prettiest dress. Are you sure this is going to work? Mildred asked, her voice trembling slightly. Madison looked over the camera, her face softening into a reassuring smile. Absolutely. Your story is powerful, Mildred. People need to hear it. Taking a deep breath, Mildred nodded. Okay, I'm ready. Madison pressed the record button, and the little red LED lit up, signaling the start of something neither of them could have completely predicted. So, Mildred, Madison began softly, tell us about your typical day. Mildred hesitated for a moment, then began to speak. Her voice, shaky at first, gained strength as she described her daily routine. Waking up early, making her own coffee, walking in the park when her arthritis allowed. As she spoke, something changed in her eyes. A spark of life, long dormant, began to shine through. Madison watched, fascinated, as Mildred transformed in front of the camera. "You know," Mildred said, a small smile playing on her lips, "sometimes when I'm in the park, I close my eyes and imagine I'm back on the farm where I grew up. I can almost smell the freshly cut grass, hear the cows mooing." Madison leaned forward, captured by the narrative. "What was your childhood like on the farm, Mildred?" And just like that, the floodgates opened. Mildred talked about hot summers picking corn, about cold nights wrapped in blankets handmade by her grandmother. She talked about her first love, a boy from the neighboring farm who broke her heart, and about the determination that drove her to New York in search of a better life. Hours passed without either of them noticing. The sun changed position, casting different shadows across the apartment, but the magic of the moment remained intact. When they finally finished, Madison turned off the camera, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mildred, that was incredible." Mildred blinked, as if coming out of a trance. "It really was, wasn't it? I haven't talked about these things in years." Madison moved closer, holding Mildred's hands. "That's why we need to share your story. Other people need to hear it, to feel that connection." Over the next few days, Madison and Mildred fell into a routine. Every day, Madison showed up with her camera, and together they explored different aspects of Mildred's life. They would walk around the neighborhood, Mildred pointing out changes over the decades. They visited the local library, where Mildred shared her love of books and how they helped her get through difficult times. One day, while they were filming Mildred baking a cake following a family recipe, Madison noticed something. "Mildred," she said softly, "you're smiling, really smiling." Mildred paused, the wooden spoon suspended over the bowl. She touched her face, feeling the lines of a genuine smile. "I guess I am, aren't I?" Madison smiled back, her heart filling with a mixture of joy and determination. "That's what we want to show the world. That light inside you." At night, after Mildred had gone to bed, Madison worked tirelessly, editing the footage. She carefully selected every scene, every word, weaving a narrative that captured the essence of Mildred, her strength, her vulnerability, her incredible resilience. Finally, the day came to share the first video online. Madison sat next to Mildred, her laptop open between them. "Ready?" Madison asked, her finger hovering over the publish button. Mildred took a deep breath, then nodded. "Ready." With a click, the video went live. The first few minutes were tense, the two women anxiously watching the screen. Then, slowly, the views began to increase. Comments began to appear. "That's beautiful. Mildred reminds me of my grandmother. I miss her so much. How can we help?" Madison read the comments aloud, her voice laced with emotion. Mildred listened in silence, tears streaming down her cheeks. They really care," Mildred whispered in disbelief. Madison squeezed her hand. "Of course they do. Your story touches people, Mildred. You're connecting with them in ways we couldn't even imagine." Over the next few days, the video continued to gain traction. More and more people shared it, commented on it, asked for more. Madison and Mildred worked together, creating new videos, answering questions, building a community around Mildred's story. One day, while filming Mildred reading fan letters, Madison noticed something in the corner of her phone screen. A notification from an account that she recognized immediately. Her heart raced. It was Caleb's account, Mildred's son. With trembling hands, Madison opened the message. It was short, just a few words, but enough to change everything. "I saw the videos. Can I talk to my mom?" Madison looked at Mildred, who continued to read the letters, oblivious to the bomb that was about to explode in her world. For a moment, Madison hesitated. Should she tell Mildred now, or wait, protect her from possible further hurt? But as she watched Mildred, she saw the strength that had grown in her over the last few weeks. She saw the woman who had faced so many adversities and still found reasons to smile. "Mildred," Madison called softly, "there's something you need to see." And so, in that small apartment in New York, a new chapter was about to begin. A chapter of reconciliation, of healing, of second chances. Mildred's journey, which had begun with an act of kindness from a stranger, was about to take an unexpected turn. And Madison, watching it all unfold, knew she was witnessing something truly extraordinary. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of Caleb's apartment, creating golden patterns on the polished wooden floor. Sitting in front of his computer, he watched the video of his mother, Mildred, for the 10th time. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly, as he contemplated the message he had sent to Madison. "I saw the videos. Can I talk to my mom?" 7 words. 7 words that carried the weight of years of regret, guilt, and a desperate desire for redemption. Across town, in her own luxurious apartment, Megan scrolled incessantly through the news feed on her smartphone. Her eyes, red and swollen from crying, stopped abruptly at the sight of a familiar face. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. The video showed Mildred sitting on her old sofa, telling stories about her youth. Megan felt her heart squeeze at the sight of her mother's hesitant smile, the deep wrinkles that hadn't been there the last time they saw each other. With trembling fingers, she called Caleb. "Have you seen it?" she asked as soon as he picked up, not bothering with a greeting. "Yes," Caleb replied, his voice a mixture of emotions. I got in touch with the woman who's making the videos." Megan felt a wave of panic. "What? Caleb, you can't. After everything that's happened." "After everything we've done, you mean?" Caleb interrupted her, his voice laden with guilt. A heavy silence settled between the brothers, years of secrets and regrets hanging in the air. "She seems so fragile," Megan finally said, her voice almost a whisper. Caleb closed his eyes, remembering the last time he had seen his mother. The look of disappointment and betrayal in her eyes still haunted him. "We have to do something, Megan," he said firmly. "We can't keep pretending she doesn't exist." Megan felt hot tears running down her cheeks. What if she doesn't forgive us? What if it's too late? Caleb's voice shook slightly as he replied, "Then at least we'll have tried. We can't undo what we've done, but maybe we can try to make amends." Meanwhile, back in Mildred's small apartment, Madison watched anxiously as the old woman read Caleb's message. Mildred's face was a canvas of emotions, shock, joy, fear, hope, all mixed into one heartbreaking expression. He wants to talk to me?" Mildred asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Madison nodded gently, placing a comforting hand on Mildred's shoulder. "Yes, he does. But it's your decision, Mildred. You don't have to do anything you don't want to." Mildred closed her eyes, memories flooding her mind. Caleb's smile as a child, the pride in his eyes when he was accepted to university, the cold, distant look in his eyes the last time they saw each other. I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted, her voice trembling. Madison knelt beside Mildred's chair, looking her in the eye. "It's okay not to be ready. You've been through a lot, Mildred. No one expects you to just forget everything." Mildred nodded slowly, grateful for Madison's understanding. "But what if this is my last chance? What if I never get the chance to talk to my son again?" The weight of those words hung in the air, laden with years of pain and regret. Madison took a deep breath, carefully choosing her next words. Mildred, over the last few months, I've seen you face your fears, share your story with the world. I've seen you find a strength you may not have known you had. Whatever your decision, I know you have the courage to deal with the consequences. Mildred looked down at her wrinkled hands, remembering all the times they had held her children, dried their tears, worked tirelessly to give them a better life. Maybe, she said slowly, maybe I can hear what he has to say. Madison smiled softly, squeezing Mildred's hand. How about we start with a message? Something simple, no pressure. Mildred nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. Yes, I think I can do that. While Madison was helping Mildred compose a reply to Caleb across town, Megan was standing in front of the mirror in her luxurious bathroom, staring at her reflection. Who are you? She whispered to herself, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. Flashbacks of her youth flooded her mind. The nights her mother stayed up sewing to pay for her dance lessons, the comforting hugs when she came home crying after yet another failed audition. With trembling hands, Megan picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. Hello, Madison. This is Megan, Mildred's daughter. I think I've made a terrible mistake. Back in Mildred's apartment, the sound of a notification broke the silence. Madison looked at the phone, her eyes widening in surprise. Mildred, she said softly, I think we have one more person who wants to talk to you. Mildred looked at Madison, confusion and hope mixed in her tired eyes. Who? Madison hesitated for a moment before answering. It's Megan, your daughter. The world seemed to stop for an instant. Mildred felt her heart racing, a mixture of fear and longing taking hold of her. She looked at the family photo on the wall, a frozen image of happier times. Maybe, she said, her voice trembling slightly, maybe it's time to listen to what my children have to say. And so, on that sunny afternoon in New York, 3 broken hearts began to take their first hesitant steps towards healing. The road ahead would be long and difficult, full of painful conversations and hard-to-face truths. But there was hope. A small flame that, fueled by love and forgiveness, could grow and light the way to a new beginning. Madison watched as Mildred prepared to face her past and possibly rebuild her future. She knew that what was about to happen would change the lives of everyone involved, and, silently, she made a promise to herself to be by Mildred's side every step of the way, no matter what. The atmosphere was full of anticipation in Mildred's small apartment. After days of exchanging messages between mother and son, the time had finally come for them to meet. Mildred sat nervously in her armchair, her hands intertwined in her lap, while Madison organized the room, making sure everything was perfect for the occasion. Are you ready, Mildred? Madison asked, her tone encouraging. Ready for what? Mildred replied, a nervous smile crossing her face. For a reunion that might not work out? Madison approached, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. You're doing this for you, for your happiness. And who knows, it could be the start of something new. Mildred took a deep breath, trying to shake off the anxiety that was enveloping her. You're right. I know this is important, for me, for them. The ring of an intercom interrupted the tense silence. Madison glanced quickly at Mildred, who was paralyzed, a look of uncertainty on her face. It's time, Madison said softly. Mildred nodded, her heart beating wildly. I don't know if I can do this, Madison. You can and you will, Madison replied, her confidence unwavering. Remember, you're stronger than you think. Madison walked over to the intercom and pressed the button. Caleb, is that you? She asked, trying to control the anticipation in her voice. Yes, it's me. I'm here with Megan, Caleb replied, his voice echoing through the speaker. Come in, Madison said, opening the door and turning to Mildred. Come on, you can do it." Mildred took a deep breath and stood up, her determination growing as Caleb and Megan's footsteps approached. When the door opened, her children stood there, hesitant but visibly nervous. Mildred's eyes met Caleb's, who was more mature but still bore the expression of a boy who had lost his way. Megan, next to him, seemed lost in thought, her hands shakily clutching her bag. "Hi, Mom," Caleb said, his tone cautious. "Hi," Mildred replied, her voice coming out softer than she expected. "Thanks for coming." An awkward silence settled over the room as everyone stared at each other. Madison, sensing the tension, decided to intervene. "Let's sit down," she suggested, leading everyone to the dining table, where a simple snack was prepared. "I've brought some snacks. I hope you like them." Mildred couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was on the edge of a precipice, ready to take a step in unpredictable directions. She sat down, and her children did the same, forming a circle that seemed both intimate and distant. I saw the videos." Caleb finally broke the silence, his voice full of emotion. "Mom, you opened up in a way I never expected." Mildred looked at him, her heart swinging between pain and hope. "I did it because I felt I had to. I needed you to know who I am, what I've been through." Megan looked at Mildred, her expression a mixture of sadness and understanding. "Mom, we don't understand. We don't realize how much you've suffered." "I didn't realize how much you were fighting either," Mildred replied, her voice breaking. "If I'd known, maybe I would have done something different." Caleb leaned forward, his eyes full of regret. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have been more responsible. I should have thought more of you." Mildred's eyes filled with tears. "You are my children. I've always done what I thought was best for you. But there are also limits. When you decided to go your own way, I felt abandoned." Megan, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke. "Mom, I know I wasn't there for you. I was so focused on myself, on trying to find my place in the world, that I didn't realize what was happening to you." "But you don't have to feel guilty," Mildred said, her words soft. "Life is complicated, and we all make mistakes." Caleb looked at his mother, his eyes now full of determination. "I want to make it right. I want you to know that I'm grateful for everything you've done for us, even when I didn't realize it." "Me too," Megan added, her voice full of emotion. "I want to understand you better, Mom. I want us to be able to rebuild our family." Mildred felt a wave of hope flood her heart. "I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to try." Madison, watching the scene, felt a mixture of pride and joy. She knew she was witnessing something special, a moment of reconciliation and healing that would take time, but had begun. With her emotions running high, Mildred decided it was time to open her heart completely. "There's something I need to share with you." The children looked at her, the tension in the air rising again. "When your father passed away, I was devastated. What little he left was all we had. I saved every penny because I wanted you to have a future, to fulfill your dreams. And when you decided to take that money from me, I felt betrayed. I felt like I had failed as a mother." Caleb and Megan exchanged glances, each trying to find the right words. "Mom, we didn't mean for this to happen," Caleb said, his voice shaking. "I got carried away with ambition and lost sight of what really mattered." "I didn't want to hurt you," Megan added. "I just wanted to find my own way." Mildred took a deep breath, the words heavy on her heart. "I know. But what you didn't understand was the pain it caused me. It wasn't just the money. It was the trust, the love I had for you. I've lost everything." Megan leaned forward, her gaze intense. "Mom, we're here now. We can fix this. Please give us a chance." Mildred looked at her children, seeing the sincerity in their eyes. She felt that although the road ahead was full of challenges, there was a light on the horizon. "I want to try," she finally said, her voice firm. "But it requires effort from all of us. We need to be honest, vulnerable, and we need time." Caleb and Megan nodded, the determination on their faces mirroring that of their mother. "We're ready for this," Caleb said, his voice full of conviction. "We just want you to know that we love you, even when we didn't know how to show it." And so, in that small apartment in New York, a new journey began. Love, though bruised, was being rekindled. Mildred, Caleb, and Megan were ready to face whatever came next, together. Reconciliation was underway, and the future, though uncertain, looked brighter than ever. Madison watched with a smile, knowing that Mildred's story was about to unfold in a way that could touch and inspire many more lives. She had become not just a witness, but an essential part of this new narrative of love, forgiveness, and hope. The corner of Mildred's apartment was filled with laughter and lively conversation. The morning light streamed in through the windows, illuminating the room and creating an atmosphere of renewal and hope. After the emotional reunion at the dinner table, Mildred, Caleb, and Megan decided it was time to take the next steps towards healing. They were determined to rebuild their relationship, one day at a time. That morning, Mildred sat in her favorite armchair, watching her children as they set up a small breakfast table. The aroma of fresh coffee and warm pancakes filled the air, bringing a sense of coziness she hadn't felt in years. "I hope you're hungry, Mom," Caleb said, smiling as he placed a plate in front of her. "We made pancakes just the way you like them." "With lots of honey and fruit?" Mildred asked, her voice full of anticipation. "Of course. Just like you always do," Megan replied, her joy evident as she sat down at the table. Mildred looked at them, her heart filling with gratitude. It was as if a new chapter in their lives was beginning, and she was eager to explore it. "I still can't believe you're really here," Mildred said, her voice full of emotion. "After so long, it's like a dream." "We're here, Mom, and we're ready to make it work," Caleb replied, his eyes steady. As they served themselves, Mildred decided it was time to address something that had plagued her since the beginning of her journey. "Before we start, I need to talk about something important." The children stopped, the smiles disappearing from their faces. "What is it, Mom?" Megan asked, concern evident in her voice. Mildred took a deep breath, feeling the pressure in her chest. "When I shared my story in the videos, I didn't do it just to open up. I did it because I wanted you to know the impact your actions had on me. I felt betrayed, alone, and worthless." The tension in the room was palpable. Caleb and Megan exchanged glances, each reflecting the pain they felt. "I understand, Mom," Caleb said, his voice soft. "And I'm sorry. I never wanted you to feel this way. But what we need to understand now is that we can fix this," Mildred continued, her voice firm. "Forgiveness isn't just a word, it's an act. And I want us to be able to forgive each other. Not just for our actions, but for not being there for each other when we needed it most." Megan leaned forward, tears shining in her eyes. "Mom, I love you. And I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win back your trust." Caleb nodded, determination in his gaze. "So am I. I want to be the son you deserve." Mildred smiled, feeling a wave of love flood her heart. "That means the world to me. But we need to be honest about what happened and how we can move forward." The three of them spent the morning talking, exploring their emotions and reflecting on the experiences that had shaped them. Mildred shared her most painful memories and the moments when she felt most vulnerable. She talked about her struggle to stay strong after her husband's death, how she felt when she lost her savings, and most importantly, the sense of betrayal that accompanied her. Caleb and Megan listened attentively, their pained expressions turning to understanding. "We didn't realize how much you were suffering," Caleb said, his voice breaking. "And I'm sorry for that." "Me too," Megan added. "I was so focused on myself that I didn't realize what was happening to you." Mildred looked at them, her heart full of love and compassion. "I've made mistakes too, loves. I should have opened up to you. I should have asked for help instead of closing myself off." The conversation flowed naturally, and with each word, the barriers separating them began to crumble. They laughed together, remembering happy childhood moments, while Mildred told funny stories about Caleb and Megan's antics. "Do you remember the time you two tried to have a picnic in the backyard and ended up calling the bees?" Mildred laughed, her smile lighting up the room. Caleb and Megan looked at each other laughing. "Yes, I thought I could be the next great chef," Caleb joked. The light, laughter-filled atmosphere brought unexpected comfort, and Mildred realized that by opening up, she was allowing her unconditional love for her children to prevail. "But now we need to commit to being honest with each other," Mildred said, her voice becoming more serious. "That means not only asking for forgiveness, but also accepting responsibility for our actions." Megan nodded, her expression determined. "I promise. I'll make an effort to be more present and attentive." Caleb made his promise too, and Mildred felt a warmth grow inside her. These moments of vulnerability were becoming a new foundation for their family. "I also want us to do something together," Mildred suggested, the idea beginning to take shape in her mind. "Something that brings us together and allows us to create new memories." "Like what?" Caleb asked, curious. "How about we start a community project? Something that helps other people who are going through difficulties, just like us?" Mildred proposed, a glint of enthusiasm in her eyes. Megan smiled, her ideas starting to flow. "That would be amazing. We could do fundraising events or even help out at a local shelter." Caleb, picking up on the excitement, added, "And we could document it all, share our experiences. It could inspire other people to reconnect and support each other." Mildred felt the excitement grow inside her. "Yes, that's perfect. We can make videos, share stories of overcoming, and maybe even help other families get together." The energy in the room was contagious, and Mildred realized that the love she had always had for her children was turning into a powerful force. They were ready to reconnect not only as a family, but also as agents of change. As the morning turned into afternoon, they continued to discuss ideas, dreaming together about a future that had previously seemed impossible. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, love, and a renewed sense of purpose. And so, as Mildred looked into the faces of her children, she knew that she had taken the first step towards forgiveness, not just for her children, but also for herself. The road ahead would not be easy, but they were in it together. Mildred's journey was just beginning, and with Caleb and Megan's help, she was ready to shine again. Love had prevailed, and the promise of new beginnings wafted through the air like a gentle breeze on a sunny day. Mildred's story, which began with pain and betrayal, was now turning into a testimony of love, hope, and reconciliation, a story that would undoubtedly resonate in many hearts around the world. Did this narrative stir your emotions? Don't forget to express your approval with a like. Take advantage of the Super Thanks feature, available just below the video, to offer direct support to the channel and contribute to the production of more fascinating content. Subscribe and remember to activate the bell to stay up to date with all the latest updates. And attention, a new exciting story is already ready to be displayed on your screen. Your participation means a lot to me, and I hope to count on your presence soon. Thank you very much for dedicating your time to this video.